Today on the Tom Kelly Show, a repurposed episode of the Bladtcast, where Christian Bladt, a friend of mine who has been on the Tom Kelly Show, interviews me about my Long Island success, my thoughts on Shane Gillis when his big comeback when he hosted Saturday Night Live a couple of months ago. We talk about why Farmingdale State students are a little more sensitive than Quinnipiac students, and listen, if this is the Tom Kelly Show podcast where one comedian, me, Tom Kelly, gets back to having fun, one thing I have fun with is connecting with old friends. So, listen, Christian loves a long podcast, so we better hurry up and start the show.
The Tom Kelly Show. Everybody, I want you to go to the Tom Kelly Show. I want you all to know about the Tom Kelly Show.
Yes, indeed. Welcome to the Bladtcast. Very excited to welcome back to the show the one, the only comedian, Tom Kelly. Tom, thank you for being here today. Basically, we could have just recorded this and not done it live, but I thought, maybe a few people will pop in. We got some regulars that show up. There are people watching right now, literal handful. But I thought, let's have the live element to interact with people. And then I can always post it. I could post the segments in clips if I choose to,
Well, and here's what I love
there's one segment that would not live on YouTube. Anyway, go ahead. Sorry, Tom.
Yeah, no, what I love about doing these things with you, because, not that we have to rehash all the stories, but we were NBC pages together.
Correct.
We did work in Studio 8H for spurts at a time together. And yeah, this rainbow, where's the thin line between us being super fans of an ever-living institution and being trapped in the past?
Yeah.
And having peaked way too young.
It's a very fine line. Corby's in the chat. Can't stay long. Just wanted to say hi. You know what, Corby? The fact that you just said hi makes it all worthwhile. The fact that we're here. Now, Tom, I wanted to take a moment before we dive into some comedy news. And this seemed like a great week to talk to you because there's some big news with some various comedians. And I think you would have an insight as somebody who regularly gets up on the stage and, worries when you see the light in the back of the room. By the way, Corby likes the Weekend Update background, so I appreciate that. In any case, so we'll dive into that stuff. But, I was talking off air to our mutual friend David Brody recently, and we enjoy the fact that you sort of found your way into being a niche comedian in not a negative sense at all. Because you're doing a lot of videos about Long Island because you are, in fact, Massapequa strong, and you want to share that. You want to shout that from the mountaintops.
So it's an accidental success that I don't know what to do with, if we're being fair. Christian and I have been comedy friends. My first time ever on stage, or second time ever on stage, Christian was in the room. Christian knows me almost 30 years. And for the 30 years he has known me, I've been trying to escape Long Island. And right now, my biggest success in the last 4 years since the pandemic started is the very place that I've been trying to run away from. And if you listen to my Tom Kelly Show podcast, which is a mix of spiritual stuff and stand-up comedy, which is probably part of why it hasn't taken off. But it's been about me trying to find my way in comedy. And what's just annoying right now is a few clips from that show have done, talking about where I grew up and sort of pooping on where I grew up, have gone viral. And I am regionally famous right now. I am famous in New York, south of the Southern State Parkway, east of Route 135, and west of Route 110, down to the water. Now, that's very important to say, not from the highway to the sea, because that's where it gets edgy, but from the highway to the sea.
And I'm not going to play the audio, but I'm just playing for our visual audience again. We can play some audio, but for now,
it's better that I describe it because it's much more. It'll be more relatable to your national and international audiences. Right now, I am using my hometown to build up my fan base. Is that a fair sentence?
I think that is a fair sentence. Absolutely.
So, but what's annoying right now is I will do a video about the TGI Fridays on Sunrise Highway closing, thousands of views. I do a well-produced video where I traveled to somewhere in Florida, nothing. I will do a great cutting joke about politics of the day, nothing. This video right here is me talking about a guy who has a luncheonette. Is that a national word? A coffee?
Yeah, I mean, I mean, you could call it a diner. I know that they're a little different. Luncheonettes, coffee shops, diners, they're all similar.
Yeah.
There probably is a rule book as to which one you are, but for the sake of conversation, we can call it.
For the sake of conversation, a breakfast and lunch affordable restaurant near a train station went out of business. He actually, I think someone opened a spite store on the poor guy. He had this nice little breakfast place. Somebody opened the equivalent of a mom and pop Starbucks. It's actually called Massapequa Perk. So they're sort of biting on the Friends thing with the word perk. Anyway, speed through the story. The guy is going out of business, and he basically, instead of putting up a little sign that says, "Thank you, town, for the 3 years of business. I'm going to miss doing things with you. Follow me to my next restaurant." He put up a sign saying, "I'm moving to a better town, and screw you people, F all of you." And I did a little video about that. That went viral. But then he did another video he put up another sign basically saying the women who live in our town are unattractive. And the women in the town in the Massapequa Moms Facebook group have gone nuts. That guy has gotten more attention with a Sharpie, a piece of deli paper, and Scotch tape than I've gotten in 20 years of network television.
So obviously you're plugged in with the Massapequa Moms group. I hope that,
dude, again,
you've
all
gotten
the
some
women who
subs
shot
to
me
the
down in high
pod.
school are the ones building me up in social media. It's awful.
Well, yeah, I mean, look, I get that though. I mean, I think that a lot of times, you'll have a variety of performers. You'll have comics, you'll have musicians, and then it's like, oh, this thing that is not what I intended to do. This is the thing that's catching on. So I can't turn my back on it, but I also want to how do I get those people to care about the other stuff? And I still don't know what it is,
I was going to compare myself to Billy Joel, but that's a little arrogant. Like I feel like Billy Joel playing a little concert and people yelling, "Play piano, man." Now that's arrogant because he has a catalog of other hits. I really feel like more Chumbawamba and people saying, "Play, they get knocked down again."
There's a Simpsons episode where Bachman Turner Overdrive are on the stage, and Homer yells, "Take care of business." He's like, the band's like, "Oh, we'll get to it." He's like, "Play it now." And so they play it now, but then even they start playing it, he's like, "Get to the working overtime part." So people just want what they want. And I think it's a tough balance. I find myself on shows, like I'll see videos of myself that have 15,000 views in a week, sometimes less time. And I'm like, that's great. I'm in this video. And the whole time it's got my social media on there. And, then I did a Bladtcast that had 103 views. Okay. But what's the difference? And I don't know. I guess it's all on the platform, and it's the topic. It's the topic that we're talking
listen, and the fun thing for those new Bladtcast viewers who don't know who I am, I'm a stand-up comic. I made my living really warming up and being the comedian who works before a number of TV shows, most notably The View and most notably Good Morning America. And I was working at Good Morning America full time. And long story short, after 15 years at ABC, I got laid off on a Tuesday. They stopped paying on a Wednesday. And my Tom Kelly Show podcast, of which Christian has been a guest on multiple times, has been about me trying to find my next step. And one of the things we learn in comedy and art and in life is there's the thing you want to do, and then there's the thing people want you to do. And what I'm having trouble with is neither of those things are paying well yet, or how do I make money at the thing that people want me to do? But I'll tell you, what's interesting. You don't get this because your audience is spread around the globe. The funny thing about my audience all being concentrated within 1 mile of my mom and dad's house is, for the most part, everybody's been if anybody comes up to me, they've been complimentary. Now, online, the hate mail's a little dark because I'm always afraid of somebody getting mad at one of my videos critiquing the neighborhood and somebody taking a rock and throwing it through my mom's window instead of mine.
Right.
You
No,
know,
no, that becomes the problem when it's real life stuff. The
well,
online
it's very,
stuff,
but it's very real life. I'm pooping where I eat. It's kind of like, I'm in the neighborhood where, I'm in the neighborhood. And then the other one that I don't think we've said yet today is part of what has helped my Long Island humor take off is the alleged Gilgo Beach, Long Island serial killer was found in my hometown.
Alleged.
And it's funny that we can do a separate podcast on that. I am overusing the word alleged because I have I'll give the odds at 50-50 in New York State as to whether or not he actually gets convicted.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. I mean, like right now, the big one in New York State is I thought we were going to have a second serial killer on Long Island. I'm like, great for Tom's career. And
tragic for all the murders, but those happened already. Let's move on from the tragedy and see how we can. What does this mean for Tom?
No, and to answering your question of how do I feel about being a geographic niche comedian? 2 dead bodies were found in pieces in a park in which I might actually walk through from time to time, like the wooded area of a park. Now, The fear lately is, it's the migrants and the gangs and the MS-13, which is real. I don't want to dismiss that.
Sure.
And I made a video saying, geez, I'm really hoping it's not a gang, because a gang requires more policing, higher taxes, and feels tragic. But for some reason, serial killer makes you giggle. And it's good for tourism. You get some, and listen, serial killers are great for Long Island tourism. This town of Massapequa Park, God bless, the serial killer's house is a block or 2 away from the train station. And people drive into town. They get a cup of coffee. They go walk past the guy's house. Then they go on with their day. It's at least great for the local restaurants. It's something to do. But somehow gang violence, not amusing. And that's the differences in our hearts. And that's wrong.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
It's still death. Like there are still dead people behind it.
A serial killer is a concept that people can grab and they feel like, all right, with some police work, we can get to the bottom of that. If you put Jodie Foster on the case, we're probably going to catch him. But gang violence, systemic violence is what's the solution for that? I don't know, but I got some jokes anyway, and that's really what it comes down to. So
and this is such a New York and Northeast thing to say, and I've seen this happen in a few towns where there'll be like a tragic violent crime, and then people will be like, no, they knew each other, it's okay, they were lovers.
Well, the thing that I'll say about that is like, okay, they were only going to kill each other. You know what I mean? Like this was motivated. The random, that's what I think people get scared of. That's why you go all the way back to like the Zodiac killer. And it's just like, Son of Sam, all that stuff. The Boston Strangler, the Manson family, as it turned out, it was really calculated. It was people that it's just, Manson didn't keep up on change of address forms. So the producer who wronged him didn't live in the house anymore. But they decided to rain down and try and start a race war because somebody didn't like his demo. But that being said, I think that's what people don't like. But when it's random violence and then random causes, like, all right, I can't put my finger on it. If it's a serial killer who's traipsing lovers' lanes in the California Bay Area, you're like, all right, well, I don't live there, so I'll just follow this story from afar and be fascinated.
Now, just to answer your question from the top, and before I turn your comedy podcast into a true crime podcast.
Hey, whatever helps the numbers, Tom.
Dude, more death. I mean, again, more death. Bladtcast.
By the way,
more murder.
By the way, I'll let you finish your thought. But by the way, Rick Dees, a well-known disc jockey, specifically in Los Angeles, at some point he just started doing a true crime podcast because somebody was like, yeah, there's a lot of these. They make a lot of money. And he's like, great. So in the middle of a murder, he'd be like, and that happened at 72 degrees. We'll be right back in 2 and 2. But no, legitimately, Rick
Is he
Dees of
doing?
all
Is he
people.
doing on air murder, or is he doing it as a podcast?
It was a podcast. I don't know if he still does it, but I heard about it, and it was one of those like, oh, somebody said, yeah, there's a dollar around, there's a dollar sign in the word podcast. But you were going to say something about true crime.
To your point, is or about comedy and whatnot is. And with niche comedy, frankly, like there's a guy, Anthony Rodia. He does a couple of Italian jokes. He's huge in the Italian communities. Sebastian Maniscalco is actually a perfect example of using the path well. Is at this point, I'm trying to build a foundation. And if I could slowly spiral outward from my epicenter, that's the goal. I'm actually using, in many ways, old-fashioned radio theories on the internet. If I could have a great local show and then syndicate it to Nassau County and the city, great. So we're trying to build out one town at a time. And the big thing is the fear with niche comedy is, will my success in New York alienate national fans? So I went to a comedy consultant who's based in LA. She books people for comedy festivals and America's Got Talent. And she's like, Tom, you're doing too many New York jokes. And you just want to say, dude, those are the only ones that are working.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Like what's better, being seen as the guy who's too New York and can only fill one room in Nassau County, or the guy who is national and hilarious, but nobody's looking at my crap. And I'll let you know, a comedian friend we have in common. I won't name him here because this may sound disparaging, but he was told, hey, why don't you do less fart jokes? And he's like, dude, people come to me for the fart jokes.
Yeah.
And you just go, but then you go, where's the line between art and making a living? And I'll let you know in another 6 months to a year. So I'm doubling down on the niche for real though. Like this is a stupid one, but I'm going to own the niche. Like I live my life on 6 months plans. My birthday's June 10th. Please feel free to send me a text or a birthday gift or whatever.
Yeah, we'll put your Venmo up. Sure.
Put my Venmo. It actually is up. Tom Kelly Show.
Oh, perfect. All right.
Stupid one. I once said it. Let's make it. It was at a Good Morning America concert. Crowd of 5,000 people who were fans of whoever I was opening for. And I jokingly said, "Oh yeah, my Bumble Tom Kelly Show, my Instagram Tom Kelly Show, my Tinder Tom Kelly Show, my Venmo Tom Kelly Show." And I would say about 100 people all started sending me 1 penny, and that was offset by the other 50 people requesting $1 from me.
And I guess you're like, look, and depending on how this year goes, probably I'll also be Tom Kelly Show on Grindr next year because
I was Grindr and OnlyFans, man. Listen, here I am, right? Let's start it here. The OnlyFans Beatcast for the visual.
There is an Only Feet or whatever. A friend of mine has considered actually putting their wares on there. Let me back up a couple of points because I don't want to go down the feet rabbit hole. So there's you reminded me of something that again I'm name dropping somebody who name dropped somebody else. So Dennis Miller, who everybody knows I worked for a long time.
Yeah,
he was telling a story about that conversation he had with Jerry Seinfeld like forever ago, and about how he would go up and he would do shows in Boston and the Boston comics would kill. And this is early on. Jerry would do okay. But, the other New York comics would all be like, I don't know what it is. And he explained it, Jerry did, by comparing it to the Superman concept of the bottle city of Candor, which is this little tiny city in a bottle. And he's like, that's Boston. They do really well inside the bottle city of Candor, but once the further away they get from it, the less their jokes go over. So you can make jokes about girls from Quincy and whatever, you do your Massachusetts tight 10, but where's the cutoff in Connecticut where people stop laughing at it? Because there is a cutoff. I just don't know quite where it is.
I have a killer bit on Long Island about me making fun of suburban moms groups. The Massapequa Moms Facebook group. And to speed through the story, I think it's a national bit, but I haven't figured out how to reword it for outside of Nassau County. Like it, part of it may be that right now for performing on stage, I'm really performing a lot in Nassau County and Suffolk County and then Manhattan, New York City.
Right.
I'm not performing in other suburban counties. Like I haven't done enough in Connecticut to make it but my feeling is nowadays, which is different. Nowadays, how do you take your bit, put it online, and then hope that people outside of your geographic area come into your little Candor city, if that makes sense?
No, absolutely.
Like for at least Long Island, and I'm going to argue every town has this. Long Island has a lot of people who either are sentimental about it and they still live there, or they escaped it and it's a part of who they are.
Yeah.
Now, the trick is, how do you bring people in for a joke so that both groups feel included? Because in the group of people that are still there, there's a lot of people from Long Island whose best gift is being from Long Island. That's all they're good at. And for example, I made a video about a Long Island college. I didn't even do a whole bit about it. I used the word Farmingdale State University. Try harder. That was the joke. That's it.
Okay.
Now, you would have thought I insulted their mothers. You would have thought I used derogatory and racist terms about everybody there. And it's basically, it's a state school with a lot of, I'd say 60 to 70%, rich white kids who just don't want to leave their mom's basements. But now that was meaner than anything I said in that video. And but the crybabies comment, what's wrong with Farmingdale State? I tried hard. I got a good job as a nurse, and that's fine. And I actually don't insult that. I'm like, and then one person wrote today, why don't we ask him where he went to college, and made fun of that? And I'm like, yeah, well, you know what? I went to college at Quinnipiac University. I did a bit that went viral about that place where I called them douchebags who live near the mountain. 570,000 views on it. And you know what the difference between Farmingdale and Quinnipiac is? Quinnipiac people don't cry when they're made fun of.
I thought you were going to say $40,000 a year, but
that too. And then also my tax dollars aren't paying for your sensitive asses to get a degree while you're living in your mother's basements.
How now did this episode get into the fact that I'm going to be on the list for people at Farmingdale University?
Yes,
and I'm going to say I prefer them to CW Post. All right. That's what I'm going to say to all of that. By the way, just to backtrack a second, the great Farhad Muhammad reminds me of that American Express commercial where Seinfeld bombs in England because he makes a bunch of America-centric jokes. And Craig Robinson with the bit fake super chat, put the feet on the glass, Tom. No, that's only if you give us $9.99. But
if I get the Venmo request, if I get that Tom Kelly show right
then
now,
he'll put the feet up. So at Tom Kelly Show, if you're watching right now, boy, if ever there was an episode to probably have to take down the video. But like I said, the video will probably live on Facebook anyway. That's the.
I'm going to clip some of this. I'm having such a great time.
No.
And I've been looking for a way to alienate the kids of Farmingdale State, and I found it here on the Bladtcast.
Yeah, take that. Yeah, and join us next week where we make fun of the Bagel Boss guy, but we will save that for next time. I wanted to circle back. You mentioned sort of carving out niche performance. Do you know Joe Matarese at all?
I do, and I have one on-air and one off-air story about him. Okay. I like him.
Tell me the on-air. Here's the thing. People who know Joe Matarese love Joe Matarese. And I think people who know Matarese and like him don't always say the same things about his ability as not so much a stand-up. He is probably one of the worst podcasters I've ever seen. And it's because of inconsistency. He changes his format every week. He's like, I'm just going to talk to the chat. He's got 8 people in the chat. So, it's a lot of fly by the seat of your pants. And but
everything you just said in that last sentence is what people say about both of our podcasts.
That's true. But
I mean, for real.
Well, I know. I still don't know what this show is. This is episode 586. But anyway, so one of the greatest videos on the internet is when Joe invited his friends, Anthony Cumia, Artie Lang, and Jim Norton, to do a pilot for him about how to fixing Joe, it's called. And the idea was to talk him through some issues going on. And instead they just made fun of him for an hour. And it's hysterical. It's funny. Joe has the sense sometimes to just kind of roll with it. But anyway, Joe Matarese is going around. He has a 93.7% Italian tour that he's doing. I don't quite know where they're playing. And I think that this is one of those, we're throwing things that stick on the wall. I've seen his act. He's got some stuff about being Italian. I don't know if it's connecting with him. He's not a Long Island guy, so I wasn't sure if you knew him. But
no, I know him from Manhattan.
Right.
I know him. Joe Matarese has been the next big thing for 22 years. And
that's a very accurate statement. Yes.
It is said as a compliment. And there's a few other comics who have just been the person you admire and you wonder why they have or haven't taken off.
Sure.
I think it's important to precede any Joe Matarese conversation with how brave he is for being open about his struggles with mental illness.
I do agree.
And if you hang out with him, you get it. And then that should make you, I'm
laughing. I'm laughing because I've seen enough video and clips. I've seen stand-up clips. I've seen podcast clips. He talks about it. And, I think that probably is a lot of like, so we're going to do the podcast in a studio every week. And I'm going to have a co-host. I'm going to do a tight 5-minute monologue at the beginning. And then each week he abandons different facets of it. And then he goes back. See, the problem is that Joe was a guest on Kevin Brennan's podcast. And what Kevin Brennan does is he brings people on that he hopes will fight with each other. It's called Misery Loves Company. Whatever you think of Kevin Brennan. Kevin Brennan is a master at that sort of thing. He also will do a 4-hour show if the super chats keep coming in. And Joe Matarese was a guest on that. So the super chats were coming in. So Joe's like, great, I just want to do that. But you have to build up the show before the super chats come in. You notice I only get fake super chats on this channel.
Now, forgive me for not knowing. What is a super chat?
It's basically a tip. So somebody will, there's $1. If your channel's monetized, there's $1 sign. And you can give $1.99 and leave a comment. If it's $1.99, it has to be 50 characters or less. The more you spend, the more you can say. And it's a gentleman's agreement, a business person's agreement that if they super chat it, you will read it no matter what it says. There's a running bit on the show that I do, who are these broadcasters, where the highest super chat every week, I will say in my sign off of the episode, no matter how vile or repugnant it is, I will say it. And you have the people who understand the bit and run with it. And, I say stuff that it's very clear I don't mean. There's a line. We haven't crossed the line.
Well, but and for real, like, is there a line if I say N-word, F-word?
Well, yeah, that's where
I hate Toledo. Will you say? Will you say it?
I would definitely say I hate Toledo. That's not going to be the problem. But there's the short list of words that I would not say the actual word. That's one of them. But if it's just, let's just say they're trying to get me to be complimentary to a notorious German gentleman in history. But, there's a line when you talk about that person that I can be like, all right, it's clearly that somebody gave me, it says right there that they gave me $20. I'm going to say what that is. But then there is a line where I'm like, well, but that I can't say. So anyway.
Well, okay. Can you refund? Like, let's move the line back from the.
I don't think you can refund them. Wow, that's a great question. I don't think you can.
But like, let's go simple and say it's not the most offensive thing. I thought that notorious person from German history had a nice mustache.
Yeah,
like that. You're not necessarily going to get canceled with it, but your morals are at a point where I don't even want to say his name. Can you refund the $20?
No, so in that setting, I would probably say his name if it was in there. And if it was like, say what you want about him, at least the trains ran on time,
Okay.
And, yeah. So there's things like that, I believe I once said that, he definitely created a lot of jobs for the economy. So there's things that people will get me to say. They will try to get me in trouble with my wife. They'll have me say things. And then sometimes people who really like me will rescue me at the last second and just put in like $1 more. And it'll be something that's much more innocuous. That literally happened this past Tuesday. Somebody came in with something and I'm like, oh, I was going to say this, but now I'll just say like, have a great show, everybody, or have a great weekend. I don't even remember what it was. So anyway,
Now, you know how
That's what super
fond I
chats
am
do.
of your wife. I just love that you're as afraid of your wife as you are of
So look,
the Anti-Semitism League.
Hitler doesn't live in my house. Okay. So I don't have to really worry about that. The Simon Wiesenthal Center isn't in my kitchen. All right. So there, yeah. But there's things that I would
By the
say.
way, I know you hate it when I give you other ideas for your career, but I think a book or movie or some sort of project called Hitler Doesn't Live in My House.
Well,
is
it's just a remake of the film. The TV show Alice was based on a movie called Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore. So that it would basically be a remake called Hitler Doesn't Live Here Anymore. That's basically what we would be doing. So anyway, I just wanted to mention Joe.
I miss you,
Matarese
my
being
friend.
passed.
You know, it's
I
funny.
miss
I
you
miss.
too. I know, and you're not coming to LA this year, from what you told me. So
I may in April. We'll talk about that off camera.
All
Keep
right.
the show going. We'll do the personal
We'll keep the
plans
show
later.
going.
I'm
All
still
right.
waiting for my $1 Venmo Tom Kelly show for a feet pick.
Yeah, there's 26 people who can send Tom Kelly Show $1, and
$1.
That's all it takes to see his feet. Maybe they just don't want to see your feet.
Maybe I should be charging one. You know what's funny is I open my Venmo, so I get paid. This is so weird to say, and I know this is a side thing, but I've switched therapists.
Okay.
And I've gone back to my childhood therapist who's in semi-retirement, and he only takes Venmo. I get paid for certain stand-up gigs on Venmo, and my goal is basically, this is the psychiatrist account. This is my psychologist account. Every dollar you send to me for video of my feet goes to Dr. Jim. It goes straight to, and it brings us back to Matarese, mental health. Who'd have thought?
Yeah. Anyway,
I just put my glasses on and I read the caption.
I've got it up there. I'm going to leave it up there for a moment. But now that we're
Matarese, though, but you were finishing the conversation on Matarese. He is hilarious. He is a voracious creator of material, and he's been around forever, so he knows big guys like he was really big in the 90s and 2000s, and maybe early in the New York scene anyway.
Sure, yeah.
And so he knows your Kevin Brennans, your Anthony Rodias, and I'll argue he's adjacent to a lot of other people who have made it and are at least big names in the New York community. So you were talking about he was getting bullied a bit on Kevin Brennan's podcast. What happened?
Well, no. So Kevin Brennan just likes him, has known him for a while. Kevin Brennan is a bully. That's not the issue. But he didn't bring Matarese on to bully him. He actually wanted to pair him up with another comedian that people are outspoken against. This guy named Ray DeVito. Who I believe Ray doesn't like me.
I haven't seen Ray in 20 years. Why doesn't Ray like you?
Because he made an appearance on Jim and Sam's, Jim Norton, Sam Roberts show on Sirius, and I noticed it didn't go particularly well. And I was going to send 10 clips of it to my friend Carl, who hosts Who Are These Podcasts, which is the network that my show Who Are These Broadcasters is on. And Carl said, why don't you just come on and talk about them? And I said, sure. And the clips didn't show. I didn't alter the clips. They were what they were. His bio says things like, I know the words to all the Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons songs. So then they got him to try to sing it. He didn't know any of the words of Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons songs. It was stuff like that, and to me, it was funny. And I laughed harder. They laughed at Ray a little bit, but they also laughed with him. And in studio with Ray was a comedian. I don't know if you know her, Karen Fee, and she's not very nice.
Yeah.
And she was not nice to Ray. I think she's very funny. Not everybody does, including.
No, she's big at a comedy club called The Stand in New York City.
Right. Exactly. I know she's in tight with Norton because he has her on a lot of his shows. So anyway, that's probably why Ray doesn't like me, because I may have shown a light on a national spot that didn't go well, but I just thought it was funny. And Ray's doing fine. You know what? Ray DeVito has the Rock Bottom podcast. You can go ahead and subscribe to his YouTube channel. I came up recently on there, and he said he didn't know me, but I'm not quite sure if that's true.
Did you know him from back in the day?
No. I just know him. He was on with me on an episode of Who Are These Podcasts that I was on, and he was just sort of getting wrapped into this, what they call the Dabbleverse, which is people who pay attention to Stuttering John Melendez, which I can't go down that rabbit hole with you for this show because we'll never get to anything that we want to talk about, and at some point, lines have to be drawn, but because we're talking,
by the way, Ray DeVito is very funny, just so I don't get in trouble in New York.
No, you're not in trouble. But here's a clip of me being discussed on Ray DeVito's podcast. You tell me if you think that he knows me.
First thing in Vegas.
Yeah, I'm there. I want allegedly, but also spoken.
Let me just pause. So for people who can see this, right there on the screen, you see
is that Liam or Michael Moore?
So that's Liam. Very nice. I'll send that to him. That's our buddy Liam McEnany, which I should have said. But you see there's a super chat on the screen. So that's what a super chat is. $5. Ray needs to read that. And he will.
But he needs to read allegedly, but also really he needs to read
that's the name of the person. And then they're giving the example Madonna Crazy for You. I don't know what that's in reference.
Oh, he has to sing it. There's a microphone, I'll bet.
Yeah, I think that. Yep. You know what? You're right. So Liam's going to ask him a question now.
Berg says, I'm supposed to have some graphics. I'll put it up. Smokey this Berg. I'll ask Melton where that stuff at. I'll put it up. I'll be there.
I live like a short drive from Las Vegas.
Wait, you're going? I'm out. No, yes, you should
I'm going with my boy Christian Bladt. You know Christian?
I don't think I know Christian Bladt.
You don't know Christian Bladt? He's also like a Dabbleverse guy, so I thought maybe you guys would know each other.
He hates my podcast because I haven't seen him around. He doesn't like this guy. This guy, he's like,
Wait a second. I thought you said you didn't know him, Ray.
No, I don't know him. So I'm saying he probably doesn't like me if he's not around here.
So what do you think? Do you think he legitimately doesn't know me, or he's like, oh yeah, that's the guy who's said some things about me before, and I don't like him. By the way, I like Ray very much. Everybody should subscribe to his podcast. I would love to be a guest on the Rock Bottom podcast. Okay, let me just put it all out there.
Okay, so from that clip, and without having seen Ray for 20 years, I'm going to argue that he does know who you are, and he was trying to take the high road of not
good for him
trashing you. And not getting into that. And listen, when I knew Ray, I didn't know him well. I've been around him. In fact, I put the odds at 50-50 on whether or not he remembers me. Right. But this is where I'm not, as I have trouble finding my own audience. I would cry if you went on to This Podcast Sucks and started talking about the Tom Kelly Show,
Yeah, and by the way, it's Who Are These Podcasts?
Who are these podcasts? Yeah. I mean, no, but like you get into
and look, by the way, before I ever talked to Carl, I did check to make sure that the Bladtcast had never been on. The Dennis Miller option had never been on. Because if they goofed on Dennis in a certain way, I'm like, I can't talk to him. So I did check. Now, unfortunately, they did at one point feature some friends of yours on that show.
The View? Which one?
No, the guys who do the Serial podcast.
Did they? Okay, yeah.
So,
no, but this is the wonderful thing about where I have trouble with the internet and success. And sometimes I wonder if I have the stomach for success. You put yourself out there, people are going to make fun of you. Like the biggest show in stand-up comedy right now on the internet might be a video podcast called Kill Tony. Are you familiar with it?
Absolutely. Kill Tony. I would say, 100%.
I was listening to it for the second time ever yesterday, and I was thinking of you, actually. Christian and I started out in comedy in a comedy room, at least for the first 10 times we did stand-up.
Yeah.
In a room where I would argue half of the room, our common friends and a few extra people, went on to do great things in entertainment, and you had to pay $5 to get on stage. And the other half of the room really should have taken that $5 and paid for medication and proper mental health care. And I mean that in a real way.
I'm laughing because you're right. Yes, 100%.
There was a nurse. It was Gladys's comedy room, and she still does an open mic night on Thursdays at the comic strip. You pay $15 to get on stage now. How about that for inflation? Thanks, Biden. And no, and you pay $15 to get on stage. And
when Clinton was president, it was free.
Actually, no, it was $5. We paid $5 back then, I think.
You know what? I think you're right. Yeah.
I'm pretty. And all jokes aside, that $5 was important because I would just look at, like, there was a woman who was a nurse who would always talk about killing her patients, and it was never funny every week. And you would go, this is somebody who should be talking to somebody, not talking on stage. And there was like 10 other people like that.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's either a cry for help or a confession. That's not an act. You know,
so to your point, Kill Tony has turned cries for help into an amazing podcast. Like, I'm in it, and
let's just explain. So people, they get 1 minute, right? And they get to perform for like huge names. Our guests on that show. They used to do it at, I think, the Comedy Store here, and now they do it in Austin. But Venmo isn't available in the UK. Craig would have given you £1. So
easy excuse, Craig.
Why don't you got PayPal, Tom?
Yeah.
But I don't know the name on it.
Okay.
I'm not showing you a free token. Find a friend, Craig. You got time.
Yeah.
You're at the laptop. We're doing this for another hour.
I'm gonna get a text from Craig that's like, can you loan me a $5? And I just might, Craig. Anyway, so yeah, Kill Tony. Average people get, but you have to do a minute, right? You could be
only a minute.
You could be a fledgling comedian. You could be somewhat established, but you get a minute. You get to do it in front of huge names. It's a great concept. I have only heard a little bit of it.
And then very important, you do your minute of stand-up, good or bad, and then you're critiqued by one or two celebrities and maybe a few people you may not quite know or whatever, but the criticism is biting.
Yeah, absolutely. Craig would like you to show us one toe for free, but I won't hold you to that. Yeah, that's right. You know, the first taste was free, kid. Now you gotta clean out your bank account. So what was there something specific about Kill Tony before we move on?
There's the hard part about you and I what I love about talking to you too is we go down these rabbit holes. But yeah, so anyway, I don't want to be critiqued by other people. Bringing it back to Ray DeVito and all that. I don't. So like, I could see why he didn't tell people. Like, he's like, you know what, man? I don't want to go back on who are these podcasts. I don't know that guy. That's what happened there.
No, he would. He just wldn't want to be on with.
And for the record, I love Liam McEnany. And
Liam McEnany's great. Yeah.
And I've known him at arm's length. I've known him for 25, 30 years. Yeah. And he's a shit stirrer.
Yes, he is. That he knew what he was doing. He told me, he's like, I'm going to be on Ray's show tonight. I'll drop your name. I'm like, you don't have to do that. So he knew what he was doing. He actually got Ray very upset the next time he was on. Liam was telling me about it because he kind of needles Ray a little bit and he makes fun of him. But then the people in his chat were saying, because they know Ray, they're like, no, he's actually mad at you. So then Liam realized, like, okay, I guess I should dial it back.
See, and I think Liam falls into this category of, I made my career in daytime TV. I made my bones in daytime TV when you were banging cheerleaders. And no, but I'm the last remnants of late 90s daytime where nice guys try to go further. I never quite had enough testosterone to deal with criticism and to give it in a mean way. Like, even when I do crowd work, people think I'm mean on stage, and I might be. Even in my videos making fun of Long Island, except for one, I don't think of what I said as mean sentences, but rather predominantly backhanded compliments. That's how I sleep at night. Outside of one video where I got kicked out of a flea market where I was going to make a nostalgic.
I saw that video, and you were within the right. Yeah, absolutely. Because what was it hurting?
But yeah, I try not to punch down or punch, but I try to like kind of needle, or I think I'm busting your chops.
Right. You know? And I think that I've found myself in a situation where we kind of, you try to have it be good natured. It's really ball busting. That's what I like to think of it. Yeah. It's not like, oh, we're going to laugh at this person who had a tragedy in their life. No. It's like, oh, this person started laughing on a news broadcast at something that was completely inappropriate to laugh during. I think everybody has fun with a clip like that. It sort of starts with stuff like that, and then the last time I was on Who Are These Podcasts, episode 498 this past weekend, we analyzed Rachel Dolezal's podcast. Do you know who she is?
Is she still around?
She's got a podcast.
The transracial woman?
Yes. So she's a woman who is not African-American or Black. She makes a distinction. They're different things. She's neither of those things by birth, but she has claimed it. And so someone like that, I'm like, all right, I don't think I like this woman's whole spiel. So I probably leaned in a little bit. We also played clips of O.J. Simpson as a football analyst on a podcast called It Is What It Is.
Glad I might bouncing back.
Yeah, I might lean into OJ a little bit, but not if I saw him at an airport. Juice, you got time for a selfie? And you would be the first person I texted to. So.
And I would take it. That's the hypocrisy, huh? Yeah. How many people have we hated that we're willing to go get a selfie with? Frankly, it's cover art for the next episode of the Bladtcast.
I know you have plenty of people who wouldn't, but you have people who are like, I hate Trump. I can go on and on about what I don't like for him. I'd never vote for him. Oh, he's at my local diner? Well, of course I'm going to get a picture, So there's that. And look, there are people that wouldn't. That's a bad example in some ways, but it's kind of the perfect example in other ways. Anyway, Tom, we're 46 minutes in and we haven't talked about any of the things that I wanted to talk about.
It's the magic of taking a break from you, my friend.
It's the magic of the Bladtcast. It's what we do. So I do want to dive into something that you have. You told me before we started, you actually have some insight on. So this news story is going to do a great job explaining what happened. So 4 comedians had their gigs canceled in Seattle. This is the Capitol Hill region of Seattle. Now, people might remember that region because it was known as Chaz at one point. It was the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone. They didn't want police in there. They set up their own perimeter. And then somebody got murdered in there, and then they needed the police to come in. So, it's like the Occupy Wall Street. Everything's great right up until it isn't. So that's where this comedy club is. Obviously, Chaz no longer exists, but that's still seemingly kind of the mentality of the people here. So we're going to show this video from Como News, ABC4. And Tom, as somebody who grew up in a big market with big market local broadcasters, I think you're going to like this guy.
The Capitol Hill Comedy Bar is Broadway's version of a chuckle hut.
What's your wedding song? Here I Go Again by Whitesnake.
And Jim Florentine was ready to oblige the customers.
How would you describe your form of comedy?
It's silly. I don't talk about politics at all.
Yet Florentine says his agent got an email that he and 3 other jokesters had their dates canceled with very little explanation.
What was the reasoning given to you for that?
There was a whole thing about, we're a progressive area.
How do you feel about something like this happening?
It made me laugh at first.
Florentine told me that normally comics are fired after bombing on a stage, not before. The way the news came out prompted online outrage about cancel culture and free speech.
I would say be free speech if they were going to do their jokes right here. Is it free speech in there?
Seattleite Jacob DeRogers understood the business decision, and Florentine says he's already booked the same weekend now in Tacoma.
Well, I'm not mad. I wasn't even mad to begin with.
He only questions whether the odd cancellation will ultimately leave the business as the butt of some joke. In Seattle, Chris Daniels, Como News.
So before we talk about Florentine, how do you feel Chris Daniels, Como News, handled that? As the butt of a joke. He's doing the big newscaster voice.
My problem with that news piece was Jim Florentine told me that this, and this. I'm like, well, why don't you, instead of showing your Verizon guy looking face, put the clip in?
Tom, you've latched on all of what local news is. It's the reason why every week on Who Are These Broadcasters, we start with local news. It's a lot of like, and we've been told this, and here's the person saying it's like, great. Why did you tell us? Don't blow the lead.
Okay.
We live in a no spoilers culture, buddy.
Well, now here's where I'll forgive some of that reporting in that, we were told, but the guy didn't want to be on camera. Fine.
That's fine. 100%.
But what that guy did blatantly was, I had a great opportunity to interview Jim Florentine, but instead I will tell you about the story myself, which quite frankly, before I judge too hard, is something I sometimes do.
That's fair. So
because I love my image so much. That guy is a guy who loves himself too much. But back to Florentine.
Yeah, so I don't know Florentine. His buddy Don Jameson, I'm lucky enough to know and do shows with sometimes. But I don't know Florentine, but I'm a huge fan of Florentine. I think he's very funny, and he, as he says in the piece, he is not a particularly he definitely tells dirty jokes, but in the old school way. He says it. He's not political. The other comedians.
I was just looking up the list.
So
Florentine, Dave Smith,
Luis Gomez. Yeah, I could see that maybe that won't play in Chaz. He's a very edgy comedian. I find him to be funny. Not everybody does. I've only ever heard him as a guest on shows, so I don't know his act. But from what I've heard, okay, that guy pushes some envelopes. And Kurt Metzger is the other guy. And Corby and
Metzger
Corby wants to know how much money he has to send. It's $1 if you want. Oh, wait, it's $1 if you want my foot. Okay, no, you want to see my foot? It's 99 cents. Anyway,
well, don't undercut me on price.
All right, fine. It's $3 if you want my
$1 to Tom Kelly Show. And listen, folks, maybe. If you want, if this is the audio version of this, I'll DM you a picture of my foot. We're derailing. See, this is why we haven't finished a damn topic.
Yeah. All right. So
every time we talk about something smart, we're back to the feet.
I know we did. I know. Well, I blame Corby for that.
Sure. Blame the guy in the chat room and not the host or the guest. Sure.
Well, you just summarized Joe Matarice's podcast. All right. So what were you going to say?
Okay, but first of all, I think you have to look at some of these guys. One, I haven't seen any of their acts in forever. Starting with the one that's most cancelable on that list was Luis Gomez is on part of not an edgier group without me knocking anybody there. Called Legion of Skanks is the
Legion
group,
of Skanks is a show that he does. He has a show called Gas Digital. Is a network called Gas Digital. Legion of Skanks is the big show. Real Podcast is the other one that he does. And yes, it is very edgy, very envelope pushing, I think is an understatement.
Metzger was Amy Schumer's head writer years ago, and he's gotten in trouble over the years. I forget for what, but blah, blah, blah. He's gotten in trouble. I don't know the third name, Dan, and then
Dave Smith. I've heard Dave Smith again as a guest. I don't know much about him. He's fine. He doesn't seem like he's in Luis Gomez, Puerto Rican rattlesnake. He calls himself Luis Gomez. No one's in that category. I don't think that Luis Gomez should be canceled. However, if you decide that there's a gig that you have coming up and like, oh boy, we're getting a lot of pushback from the local community, he's the one of them that I'm like, all right, I guess if you're making that decision. Florentine doesn't make any sense. I mean, the last special of his I saw, it's called I Got the House. It's all about his divorce. And in the end, he gets the house. Spoiler alert. I don't know how Florentine ended up as one of those four.
And then you're sort of wondering now, what's the level for, listen, he was clean enough that somebody booked him. And Florentine's also known for if you're a man or woman of our age, he was on that metal show on VH1.
Right. Yeah. Him, Don Jameson, and Eddie Trunk. Yeah.
He's known for prank phone calls, crank anchors. Were some of those edgy back in the day? By today's standards, they were.
He did a character called Special Ed, who is what we call today developmentally disabled. So yes, that's a little bit edgy, but I don't know that gets his stand-up gig canceled.
And I'm going to argue in this day and age, in one sentence, there's a lot of people not getting booked for things. One, because they're white men. Two, because they're men. 3 out of 4 of those guys were white men on that list, right?
Yeah. Dave Smith is white. No, Dave Smith, I believe, is African-American. If he's
okay, so then never mind. But a lot of men are getting canceled. Listen, if you want to be more diverse, just book the more diverse thing in to begin with. There's a difference between not booking someone and then suddenly we had to cancel their appearance. Or what you do is you say we cancel because of low ticket sales. Listen,
Dave Smith is white. I'm thinking of a different comedian. So I actually don't know Dave Smith. Yeah.
It's a great example right now. Is in the old days, stand-up comedy was the last bastion for free speech. Sure. And the thin line between whether or not you were a comedian or racist was whether or not you had enough people laughing at your joke. And now for those guys, What you had are guys who are commercially successful. Maybe they don't fit in with your venue, but well, then why did you book them in the first place? I'm a fan of you book them, you see if they do well or not, and you book them, and maybe you never book them again. But once you cancel them, it becomes a free speech thing, not just a commercial thing. And in this age of comedy, and listen, I'm a do better comedian. I'm a guy who is trying not to sound racist. I have some opinions on transgendered politics. I'm afraid of saying them because, one, I don't want to be transphobic and get canceled now. And two, my view might evolve in a year on certain things.
I think that's fair. Sure.
But now if my view evolves in a year, am I getting canceled for what I said a year ago? It's on tape. It's out there now.
It's entirely possible,
and that's why I think we're living in an age now of we're all going to be on the internet doing our shows with super chats.
Yeah, still waiting on that dollar to Tom Kelly to see his.
No, I'm actually, and it's funny. Yeah, the last thing is just me paying for Dr. Jim's session on February 27th. So people.
All right. A show that it did make sense to me that got canceled was Nick Swardson was up in Beaver Creek, Colorado. And I understand
could use your help figuring that out.
Yeah, I know you don't know that much about it. Fortunately, I've got a couple of clips. So the first clip is him on stage doing stand-up. And eventually I've got a New York Post article that'll explain it all to us. But so here he is on stage.
You can rally.
Here we go. He
All
says.
right, here we go. I'll rally this. Watch this show.
Okay.
Here we go. Jason Statham as a beekeeper. I swear to God, it'll be fucking amazing. I love you, fucking Rick. Let's go. Here we go. Jason Statham as the beekeeper. Here we go. He's like,
do it one more time.
Hold on, wait for it. All right, here we go. We're going to. All right, here we go. Okay, Jason Statham as the beekeeper.
So that clip is about a minute and a half, and it's
It felt longer.
It did, and we're not the ones in the audience who spent money, and so he clearly knows that it's not going over. He's trying to set up the bit. He's repeatedly trying to set up the bit, and people aren't interested in hearing his Jason Statham as the beekeeper impression. So then he leans on something here that he's going to name drop somebody.
Refund! Refund! Let's go. Who here knows who Norm Macdonald is?
Oh.
Let's go.
Yeah. So he wants to tell a Norm Macdonald story.
And turned off the spotlight.
But as you can hear the people in the crowd talking, at that point, they had already turned off the spotlight. So
it's funny. I actually have a pre-recorded episode of the Tom Kelly Show coming up in, I believe, Easter weekend.
Okay.
Where my friend John Mulhall was at a show where Norm Macdonald tanked just like that.
Is that the show in Connecticut?
The Quinnipiac store.
I knew him at that point. I knew Norm when that happened.
I was interning it. I missed it because I was working with you or adjacent to you at Conan O'Brien at that point.
Right. That makes sense.
So you had just left Conan. You were at Saturday Night Live, and I was in at Conan.
Yeah. The fact that you're doing an episode about that is something that I definitely want to check out.
My friend John Mulhall was in the room. Listen, there's a few things. One, what's the name of this comedian again? Nick what?
Nick Swardson. Well,
what's he famous for?
He was on Reno 911. He's in a lot of Sandler movies. He's starred in a couple things. But let me play the New York Post story that kind of explains it. And I do have to narrate it. It's one of those New York Post videos.
No, and I can use you help with
it. So comedian Nick Swardson removed from stage at a comedy show. This is actually a later part of the same video that we saw. And you can hear people are booing. Light has gone out. The light has gone on. Excuse me. It's not the way that you want the light to go. So people are a little bit confused. He's on stage. People are figuring they should put their jackets on. Somebody comes out onto the stage, and they help him out. They help him off the stage. Put the mic back in his hand. He does all he can, which is wave. And now somebody at the comedy club is going to come out.
Hi. Good evening. My name's Justin. I'm the director of operations. We've decided to conclude the show early in the best interest of those who bought tickets. We apologize for what you've seen tonight. Please email the box office. We'll be responding to inquiries and processing credits and refunds. We apologize. Thank you very much. I'll be in the lobby if you have questions or concerns.
So I think that that gentleman who runs the venue handled it in a way that a lot of times when you hear about bands that don't play very long, you hear, shows that don't go well. He's like, hey, you're all getting refunded. You got any questions? I'm going to be in the lobby. Instead of the lights come on and then everybody's showing the way out and they're like, what the hell just happened? But so now that you kind of have the context for what happened, I want to get your thoughts, and then I'll share a post from Nick Swardson the next day.
So the punchline that I'll tell on my Tom Kelly Show podcast about Norm Macdonald is Norm went up, bid it just like that, and the opening act came out to finish the show.
Right.
Here, from the venue standpoint, wow, these people came in to see this guy, and he tanked. Now, this guy must be doing stand-up a little bit more than I thought he was doing, because I just checked his on Ticketmaster alone. He's in Niagara Falls, March 29th and 30th. He's playing Mohegan Sun Casino 2 shows on April 5th. He's in Houston, Texas, May 3rd. And yeah, he's booked all through May, every weekend. Now, I was about to give you the Michael Richards story, and I'm failing you for not knowing how much of a stand-up this guy is. The great legend of Michael Richards was doing stand-up and eventually went viral for dropping the N-bomb because he was getting booed at a comedy club because he was a great improv actor doing stand-up. And stand-up is a different art, man. When you're getting heckled, you go to the script. When you're getting heckled doing stand-up, you're not in the moment. If somebody throws you off, somebody starts yelling, your mother's a this or whatever, you just go to the script and you plow through it. This guy didn't have a script to plow through. I was headlining my own show just a month ago, and all of the joy was taken out of the room. There was a ball bustery dad in the room who just kept going, Tom Kelly, Tom Kelly, Tom Kelly. He was there to throw me off. And you know what I did? I went through my act, and the other 59 people in the room, it was a small room. Actually, it might have been, it was an 80-person room, but the other 79 people in the room didn't know what was happening because I just plowed through it. But I also wasn't doing what brought me joy in comedy, which was being in the moment. So to this guy's point here, he's not a man who has a set of skills to fall back upon. You could see that in a moment.
Well, he also has his explanation the next day. So this is at least, is it an explanation? Is it an excuse? I don't know. He says, just casually woke up on TMZ. Travel tip, don't drink and take edibles in high altitude. Fucking brain diarrhea. I'll make it up to you, Beaver Creek. And I mean, look, I've heard that about the higher altitude. I don't know if that, the idea that owning up to some substances beforehand definitely puts it into some context. But I mean, I've heard clips of this where, a stand-up keeps setting up a bit and they just can't move on. He's like, are you ready? All right, let's do it. Let's do it. Let's do it. And you're like, all right, all that the venue could do was cancel the show. And I can't imagine anybody in that audience going, yeah, okay, the next time he comes to town, I'm going to get a babysitter, take my wife out to dinner, and go see Nick Swardson, who we loved on Reno 911.
To give the guy some credit here, he has a calendar of arenas to redeem himself on.
That's a great point. Yeah.
Nobody's canceled his other appearances after that. And actually, this is where I shouldn't be talking about the story at all because I'm not educated enough, but I'll give him some credit. If that excuse is legit, the drunkest I've ever been in my life was at the Coors Factory Tour in Golden, Colorado. I was not aware of high altitude drinking stuff. And all I had was 1, maybe 2 beers at the end of the tour. And then I had to stay in town like I was terrified of driving. I stayed in town another 4 or 5 hours to work off the 2 Coors Lights I had on the tour. So,
yeah,
you know, and to the guy's credit, we haven't seen him tank. We haven't seen day 2. Like we haven't seen the next, like he's had to have had a gig between now and then.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
So, and we haven't seen him get walked off that. I will blame the venue. I will blame the venue for not putting out an opening act or somebody for 10 minutes to just eat the time and try to make people leave happy.
Right. Now, it could be as simple as he didn't have an opener. There probably was, but you know, it is something to take into consideration, I guess.
So, and to your point, one thing about modern comedy versus back in the 1990s, nowadays in the year 2024, most headliners bring their opening act with them. In the old days, the club would assign an opening act and try to pair you with someone. So your loyalty was to the club. And you're right. If I were this guy's opening act, I saw him tank because of medical reasons. I don't know if I'd want to say, hey, Nick, you know, thanks for flying me out here to Colorado. You're sucking. I'll bring it home, Nick.
Right.
Don't you worry.
But
there was,
I mean,
nobody to
there's
tell the emperor that the emperor had no clothes.
Right. No, exactly. And yeah, it was more about just sort of the feeling that an audience has in that situation. I think that explanation seems like a valid one. And I think people who like Nick are probably going to go check him out. And something tells me that if he is working on a special, he's going to have some material for it. He just got the best promotion for his next gig or his next special, or maybe just his social media, because he'll put a clip up after he does his next show. It's just, it's more of like talking to you about it is like, oh yeah, crazy things happen. And sometimes if there is another comedian in the building there who should come out. But I think that the venue just had to go, all right, I mean, let's just give you your money back. Let's call it. And it had gone on for a while before this happened.
And dude, giving the man some more credit, his April 5th show, his early show on April 5th only has 15 seats left in Mohegan Sun. And let's see how his late show's doing, all in pricing. Yeah, both of his shows in Connecticut are almost sold out. And that's a tough place to sell out, the Mohegan Sun. Because it's kind of a casino in the middle of nowhere.
I agree. I may have worked with someone who had trouble selling that place, but that's neither here nor there. I wanted to take a quick moment.
Stop picking on Ray DeVito. Enough.
Again, neither here nor there. I wanted to take a quick moment to talk about the passing of Richard Lewis, who I'm shocked how many people only know him from Curb Your Enthusiasm. Now, he's great on Curb Your Enthusiasm. That's not the point. But I remember when I was a kid, he was like a top 5 killer stand-up. It was like him, Shandling, Dennis Miller, and I don't just say that because I worked for him. You know, those were like, these guys are so funny. You know, I loved Stephen Wright too. You know, different approach.
Stephen Wright's not in that league though. That's a
no. But just for me, these were the guys. Like, everything out of their mouth was funny, and I have a short clip to share of Richard Lewis that I'll show here.
Oh, I already love his.
About everything in my life, even at home. On my stationary bike, I have a rear view mirror, which I'm not thrilled about. And sadly, my last shrink, she retired about a week ago. I'm freaked out, and it was sort of a nightmare. She was only 24. I guess I burned her out real fast, and the last session was unbelievable. She set herself on fire. She ran out of the session going, no mas, no mas. You know? So what do? I'm on the road. I'm a comic. You know, you go to these clinics, all these rip-off clinics now. I was in Dallas. I had this therapy amusement park, Six Flags over Bellevue, you know, and
yeah. So, you know, believe me, it's just a tiny snippet from, as you can see on the stage, Comic Relief 3. But you know, that style of comedian where it's just joke piled on top of joke, it does tell a narrative, you know, that sort of a thing. But I always found him to be funny. I think, you know, I probably talked to him on the phone once to tell him to hold on, wait, you know, when Dennis was having him on the radio show. Never met him. But it was one of those, it's like, oh, sad to hear because the guy was so funny. I don't know. Did you know him at all, or was it just,
no, I never had any
in-person
connection with him. I'll say this about him as a comedian who's not Richard Lewis. you could already tell, even in that 10-second clip, you knew who Richard Lewis was. I'm a comedian. I go to a therapist. I date younger women. I'm wearing my black outfit, but I'm a nice guy. So you forgive me for dating the younger women. And you felt good. I know he was fighting cancer, and I loved him on Curb because he was the stand-up Richard Lewis, but there was a different dimension to him where he was sensitive and his feelings were easily hurt. And very sadly, we know about him struggling with cancer. 2 episodes before he died, there's a bit with him and Larry David about how he's going to put Larry David in his will. And then the week after, you just see Richard Lewis, and not in a derogatory way, but this is derogatory. He looks like a made-up corpse in the episode. His acting is on the money, but he looks like a man who's going through something.
I mean, I thought that, even the season before this, you're just like, oh, wow. There was a year that Richard just wasn't on because, he was, handling treatment and trying to recover. But just such a funny voice. And, it is the old school, because like now everybody's neurotic, so now it's like, oh yeah, we can all relate to that. If you can just think like, oh my God, I'm always stressed out. I didn't know as a 12-year-old that, when I was 48, I'm like, oh, I can relate to the guy who it seemed like his problems were all so funny. By the way, Farad Muhammad points out there's a painting of Richard Lewis at Zany's in Chicago, one of like 5 comics enshrined in paint. That's what I love Farad Muhammad for. Not only is he the dulcet-toned announcer of the Bladtcast, he has a pocket full of comedy knowledge. And I'm having so much fun talking to you, Tom. And I've decided that here's the audible that I'm going to call. I want to have a conversation with you another time.
Let's do it.
About Shane Gillis on Saturday Night Live. I think it's an important conversation. And I don't want to take this video down. I had too much fun doing it. There's a lot of visual stuff that
and I'd love to clip it if you can get me the quick time.
Oh, no, I'll send you the whole thing. Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like that is a conversation I do want to have with you. Maybe we'll just do it as like a bonus for the audio version of this. I got to figure that out.
Are we going to do that today, or are we doing that down the road?
That's what I don't know. We'll talk so that if you're listening to the audio version and you see that there's only a couple minutes left, then that's not what we did. We will have that conversation at some point when it makes sense for us, and we'll share it with the Bladtcast audience. I want to share something very quick with you that I was going to do on the way out, and the great Hack Ride is in the chat. It sucks Richard Lewis didn't live long enough to tell us if he was mocking John or not. He's talking about John Melendez, stuttering John Melendez. But Hack Ride, I appreciate you checking out the stream. Hack Ride has a show called Puzzle Box. You can check out Hack Ride Studios. As the face implies, he is a demon. So tread lightly around Hack Ride. But he also was kind enough to have me as a guest on a show, and he's provided content for Who Are These Broadcasters, which is actually something that I want to show on the way out. On a recent episode of Who Are These Broadcasters, I was lucky enough, thanks to Liam McEnany, to have Jackie the Joke Man Martling as a guest on the show. And I decided that since my son was at school, I wasn't gonna keep him home, but I wanted to see if my 8-year-old son Felix could stump the Joke Man. So I played a clip for Jackie, and I do want to show that how that went. Very, very proud of the young man. And so as you can see, here's Felix. I apologize to my kid for the freeze frame, but he's going to ask Jackie a joke, and we'll see what Jackie thinks about it.
Can February March?
So can February March, similar to the joke you just told, Jackie?
This is going to have another month in it. No, because he's too short. I don't know this. Very good. He gets
okay. Well, there you go. My kid has stumped the Joke Man, because here's the punchline.
No, but April, May.
You were right. It's months, but April, May. But April, May. So my son Felix does indeed stump the Joke Man there. And I was I can't say I've never been prouder, but I've rarely been prouder as a parent, than that moment right there where, yes, indeed, my son did stump the joke man. Now, I don't think he has any use for one of Jackie's comedy CDs, so I don't know that we won anything. But
actually, was that the prize?
No, when he does it at his shows, he'll usually
right?
when he does it at his shows. Oh boy, Hackride is looking for trouble. He's saying that Felix is greater than Ray DeVito. And
I'm out. I don't want to. Please, I'm going to get out.
Tom has nothing
Leave
to
Ray
say
alone.
to that.
Leave Ray alone. He's a funny
Egan
man.
says, "Too cute, a true classic joke." Thanks for being in the chat, Kemi Egan.
Hello, Kemi Egan.
This was a really fun show. It always is when I talk to you. And
you too, my friend.
I tried to stack the deck against us with the notion that I was going to take the video down, but I enjoyed the video so much that I want to be able to share it. So I'm not going to do the thing that would make the video get taken down. But Tom, I do want to talk to you about Shane Gillis hosting SNL, and you did an episode about it at the Tom Kelly Show. And what I felt was one of the most important things you mentioned in there is that you have seen one of his specials. Because I wanted to, when we do talk about it, I was going to ask, is this all you know about him? Is the headlines and his SNL performance? So we will talk about that, as they say in show business, at another time. But I appreciate you spending more than an hour. But look, an hour 15 Bladtcast, that's like half a Bladtcast. So you're welcome, everybody. I'm trying to keep to a schedule. But Tom, you've done a great job in terms of promoting all of your stuff. But in addition to trying to get people to Venmo you $1,
I don't. What do you want me to do? I feel like it's sad once the StreamYard ends. I feel like I was going to make the offer. Send me $1. I'll send you a picture of my feet. But that feels sad now. Should I rescind that offer?
No. I think we have to keep with it. And
I think we need to make it more expensive.
Well, let's see what happens. Yeah, let's
right.
see if you.
How about this? Send me $1, and I will consider sending you a picture of my feet.
Now that I like. Well, if people,
I will send you something on Instagram.
people,
only. I don't want to get into formats and stuff. I don't want to. Oh, please send this to me via email or text me. I don't want you to get my home number or the password to my iMessage. Send me $1, and I will consider sending you a picture of my feet, and we'll discuss it.
I think that's only fair, Tom. And obviously, Tom Kelly Show on Instagram, on X, on Twitter. Oh my gosh, there you go. That's going to be the GIF heard around the world. People are going to clip that out. In any case, that's where they can find your show, and not just the episodes with me. And you said you have coming up a story about the Norm Macdonald show at
I think that, you know, it's funny, kind of in a similar spot that we're in right now. An old friend of mine and I did a couple of podcasts while we were hanging out in Florida. His 16-year-old son was working the camera, and I was banking evergreen shows because, like you, I'm trying to stick on a schedule. But I also realized two episodes with the same guest close to each other do not rate. I said, you know what? I want to enjoy Easter Sunday with my folks. I'll air it then. And it's a great evergreen story if you're a comedy lover. For fans of this podcast, it's a must listen.
Yeah, no, I'm once that episode's up, I'm going to send it to my buddy Blind Mike Geary, who does a great podcast called Why Are You Laughing? I was a guest on the Colin Quinn episode, and I think that he's a huge Norm fan, and Hackride can vouch for Blind Mike, who is blind, by the way. We don't just call him Blind Mike for a reason. He's known as Blind Mike Geary. In any case, I to hear from somebody who was in the room, because shortly after that, I saw Norm do a gig at Tulane University in New Orleans, and he did great. He crushed, and I got to talk to him backstage because I used to be in show business, but it was only a little bit removed from this show, so I was wondering what I was in store for. But that's all the time. Tom Kelly Show for everything. And you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at ChristianDMZ. And on Monday, we will do our annual Oscars post show with my friend Christian Toto from Hollywood and Toto. I have seen so many of the movies this year. I'm still trying to squeeze one or two more in before the episode. But either way, I'll have watched the telecast by then. And Hackride points out that Norm lives as Norms zombie brain eating version as a Gongoozler, which I guess is the Patreon for the great Hack Ride show. In any case, I don't know much about that, but Hack Ride, you say it, you put it up, I'll say it. That's the way that these things work on the Bladtcast. In any case, I will see everybody on Monday for our Oscars post show. That is all for now. Enjoy the video. It's staying up. It's not going down. And we will see you next time on the Bladtcast.